Welcome to the Empowered to Connect podcast, where we come together to discuss a healing-centered approach to engagement and well-being for ourselves, our families, and our communities. I'm JD Wilson, and I am your host. And today on the show, we've got a friend, a multiple layer friend, we'll say, who is a pediatrician. Dr. Lauren Chipman is with us, and she's going to talk with us about how to advocate for your kids in the physical medical space. But it is so much more than that, the conversation is. And so we're so excited to be able to have her with us and to hear her perspective as a pediatrician and as somebody who also, as a parent, went through trauma-informed training through Empowered to Connect parent courses years ago. And she describes the moment when she was learning about attachment and trauma in the brain and all of that, even as a medical professional, how much of a game changer that was for her as a pediatrician. So just a fantastic conversation. If you are a parent of a child with a medically complex situation, or you are a parent who is having to bounce in and out of medical care a lot or out of the hospital a lot, this is the episode for you to feel seen and heard, and to hear a pediatrician give some advice on that world. And so she's one of our favorites. We're glad to have her. Also, before she comes up, before we can jump into the interview today, we are so excited to tell you about something that we cannot announce publicly. So if you are interested in finding out what that special event is, we need you to go to the link that is in the show notes on our website. It's empoweredtoconnect.org/investing-in-hope. It's our first global connection event that is happening to benefit Empowered to Connect and all of our programs. We have a special guest that we are dying to tell you about, but we will let the website tell you, because that's the way that we have to let it happen. So head to empoweredtoconnect.org/investing-in-hope, or just click the link in our show notes to get there. And please do make sure that you secure your attendance at this situation, at this event, as fast as possible, because attendance is limited. So you can head to the link now. We hope to see you very soon. And without any further ado, here she is, the one and only Lauren Chipman. Well, as we talked about in the introduction, we've got Dr. Lauren Chipman here today, and she's going to share with us all about kind of a pediatrician's view of, everything. We'll have lots of questions for her today. And so also here is Tona Ottinger, and we're just going to, why don't we start, Lauren, by just, if you'll just tell us about yourself, like, yourself, your family, the work you do, and then we can talk about how you guys actually have known each other longer than we've known each other, which I did not know until a little bit ago.
Yeah, well, I'm married to Stephen Chipman, and we've been married for 21 years, and he's amazing. And I'm also a mom of four. I have four wonderful kids that are ages range from 15, 12, 10, and 8. And then I'm also a pediatrician, and I work at Memphis Children's Clinic and have been there for the last 5 years.
Okay, awesome. And then, Tona, do you want to share kind of the connection that you guys have?
Well, it's interesting because we're talking about advocating for our kids, like with medical professionals, right? And so I think I forged maybe we met. I mean, I know we have other like social connections. Like I know some of your people, like knew some of my people. Like I knew there was a foundation for sort of knowing who one another is, but we actually met in the halls of the ICU. So I haven't shared a ton of this on the podcast, but one of our older children has historically had a lot of healthcare needs, a lot of medical needs. We spent many. I decided to not be someone that like does tick marks and count. And I think I learned that wasn't healthy for me probably during this season of my life. But one of our older kiddos was in the hospital a lot and has had a liver transplant with a cascade of secondary things that happened after that time. And so we didn't have like a textbook case. We were in the hospital a lot. We had surgery, and then we were in the hospital a lot, and I would have to go back and look through journals. But I think I met you in the ICU, if I'm remembering that right. You were doing residency, right?
Yes, I was a pediatric resident from 2007 to 2010. So, yeah. And that's when
we were just like, which one of those times? I remember you being like full on pregnant at some point. We were in the ICU multiple times, which is why we can't remember which one, probably multiple. The times that you were in residency, what were our most, we were called a frequent flyer. So those were our most.
We all knew you and your lovely family.
And our sweet little guy who was just the fighter. Mm-hmm. He was fighting for his life. But there were times, I don't know, I probably experienced that time when I think back on it with like a flood of emotion because it was so incredibly difficult. Like some of the hardest days we forged in our family, but yet there was so many like beautiful, wonderful moments and times. And it was about the people, like literally and truly, it was about the nurses and the doctors and the residents. And I just remember feeling so cared for and supported by the team of professionals that were taking care of us during that time. And you would be one of those.
Thank you. Yeah. And you actually ministered to me though. I was being pregnant and thought actually that I might miscarry with this pregnancy. And you just opened your heart and encouraged me on a night on call where I was exhausted and emotional. But you're right. It's people. And I love that God helps us connect through these intense moments.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we forged a deep friendship that was a little trauma bonding because you can't be in the ICU where the sickest of the children are and it not be just intense, I suppose is a good way of saying that. It's intense. And so I'm still carrying those experiences forward. They're still a part of who I am. They've forged Mo and I in a new way, and they're part of our kids' lived experience. So it's a treasure to have you on, even just thinking about like, how do we advocate for our kiddos who've gone through a lot of difficulty and adversity, because we went through that together and you were always such a source of encouragement to me in the middle of all of that. So it's good. So yeah, JD, I've known her longer. I win the friendship timeline. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I mean our friendship just is really from our kids doing, I mean, almost every sport there is
Amos
together.
And Tucker, the Noah and Luke, and
and I mean, I've coached various teams of those, and so there are both of our third, not fourth, but both of our third kids are like the same person.
Yes.
They're just
the Bash
round.
Brothers.
Yes. And funny story, they played football together last summer. They were the only two white kids on the team. And literally we would get them as their parents, we would get them confused when they were running up, like, who is that? Noah, is that Luke? Oh, okay. And so all the kids used to like refer to Noah and Luke as brothers. And they had, a fun time playing football together, but I'll be in Costco sometimes and feel somebody run up and tackle me from behind, and it's Luke going, "What's up, coach?"
Yep, exactly.
So our families all go back a while. Why don't we kind of jump right into conversation today, and just so many of our listeners, I mean, Tona shared her story, but many people who are listening here like have kids that have complex medical needs. So, Lauren, how have you seen parents and medical professionals work together to care for their kids, as opposed to it feeling like an adversarial relationship?
Yeah. So first, I just want to encourage parents that nobody knows your kid like you know your kid. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to meet them for the first time and then maybe develop a relationship, but you're spending minutes, hours, days in, days out, all the things. And so go in knowing that with some confidence to whatever medical profession you're going to is good, and advocating for your kid. And then I think really working with parents to figure out how you can have like a patient-centered medical home, because if you've got a kid with complex needs, you're going to have to merge lots of schedules and doctors and, physical therapists or speech therapists or occupational or counseling or and school and learning and all those things, and lots of moving parts. So kind of even knowing, pulling together resources, how big is your town, where do you live, what's all available, what can be done on the same day, what's too much for your kid, if you've got other kids, there's just so much kind of going in like a patient-centered medical home to kind of look at the big picture and write down, okay, how many people are already involved in my child's care and who all needs to be involved, and then kind of figuring out what is sustainable for your family. So you're not continuity of care is so huge with kids with complex needs. And so trying to figure that out. And I think is a big, huge relationship between like a general pediatrician, so to speak, and a kid with complex needs. And so having the time to do that and it's going to take time just to even build rapport with the pediatrician over time. But yeah. And a lot of in the Memphis area, of course, many of us trained here at Le Bonheur, and then we've stayed in our community. So we're aware of the specialist. But when you're wherever your city is and knowing what's available in town, out of town, is there a center that has a children's hospital? Those kind of things will be important to talk about.
I think it's interesting. I had never thought about the family environment being a patient-centered medical home until you just gave me language for some of my lived experience. Yeah. I think about like that in terms of even like our clinic, like what does it mean to be patient-centered and have like felt safety at our clinic, but thinking about that necessary sort of reordering of our lives for seasons to support our kids. That I think that's really insightful. And I think would speak to a lot of parents.
Yeah. So in the medical community, there's a big push for primary care, especially like, pediatrics, internal medicine, for whoever your PCP is, to really be a place that's coordinating lots of care, because we've seen how many errors are made when there's not talking and communication. I mean, communication is huge in anything.
Yeah.
And especially in medical care of lots of moving parts, medications, stuff that gets redundant. We're not using our funds well because we're repeating stuff with labs, and especially kids, you don't want to poke them a bunch of times. Let's coordinate with this doctor needs this lab. This doctor needs this. Even going to the OR, we've said, okay, the ENT is going to put tubes in. So-and-so also needs a hernia repaired. Let's see if we can get them in. There's just all those things.
Oh my gosh, girl, you just spoke my love language. I can't tell you how many times we would be going in for a procedure and I'd wish I could write a prescription for them to also knock out the two other things I knew still had to come.
Yes.
Yeah.
I literally remember standing in the hospital and being like, can you please, it's like 2 more stitches. It's just 2 more stitches on a different part of the body. I understood why it was a no for us. Yeah. But even sort of those, I don't know. I love that idea. I like that
a lot and wishing it was even better than it is. There's lots of things that still don't happen well, but if we can have people talking and realizing, we're going to put a kid to sleep, let's minimize. Yeah.
Okay. So I have another question about something you said when you talked about your kids best and you know them day in and day out. So how do you, as a pediatrician, appreciate or encourage parents, especially if it's, I'm thinking of a scenario. Maybe you're the first medical stop when a family has a new foster placement. Okay. So a child's come into foster care, they're in their home, they're coming to you, or maybe they've moved to a new city and you're about to see and meet a kiddo that has a history of some traumatic experiences or something in their past. How can we as parents set up that first interaction to be successful for you and the child and us? I remember all I ever knew to do was write a big sticky note.
Yes. Yeah.
My kid didn't see, and just hand it to the nurse and be like, can you please put this on the chart? And can they read it before they open the door? And it might even be scared of doctors, long medical history, please be cautious, or, just any number of little warning signs, because I wanted it to be successful, So what are some of your tangible ideas?
If it's possible at all, when you're making the appointment for a new patient, if there's day and time to ask to speak to the physician, can they please give me a phone call? I'm a new patient, but that would be incredible. And then to be able to talk without the kid around, to know what you need to share. So that it's kind of like an intake with us, how y'all offer online, that there can be done. The other thing, if that's not feasible, you've made a same day appointment, this kid's got to come in today. I think that's fine. A sticky note. And then I can see what's comfortable. If I pull you out in the hallway and talk with you, or just I can write a note back, or the provider saying, I will call you later and get more details. Because usually in a new patient appointment, I'm trying to go through, and I've put my foot in my mouth so many times, so who all lives in the home, or the family, what's the medical history? Because I'm supposed to, fill in my blanks in my electronic medical record and fill in all these things, or even just allergies. And when maybe that opens up a can of worms because you may not even know yet what the kid's allergic to. And then it's just already awkwardness. So I think the sticky note is okay because sometimes that's all you can do. But if there's a few days ahead of time that you've made the appointment to putting in a request to the nurse line or to the front desk person saying, this is a new patient, but it's a complex past. I need the physician to call me. Is excellent. So
I know that you are not speaking for all pediatricians in all environments. I know that. So I'm not being naive, but maybe what I feel encouraged by and what I think is important and what I have decided to believe to be true is that most people, like most adults, I know that they can get tired. Everybody can get tired over time, but most adults that go into the medical field to care for children, they care about children. So like coming in, assuming best intentions of your medical providers, I think is a good, important thing for parents to remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Let's do. We love kids. So that's why we do what we do. Yeah. There's burnout. There's burnout in every field. And there's boundaries and pacing yourself. But for the most part, I think we're the nicest of the doctors.
To agree with that sentiment.
Yeah. I mean, kids are awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Early on, I told my husband, if I'm going to be up late at night, it's going to be because of a kid. I'm sorry, adults. Y'all are too complicated. You've done a lot of this stuff to yourself. Sorry.
Yeah. They get a little cantankerous. Yeah.
Lauren, I have a question. So let's say that you talked about knowing your kid best, and maybe there's something going on where you're like, I don't think this person is hearing me. I don't think the doctor is hearing me. They're wanting to push forward something that I know for one reason or another is not right in this setting. And admittedly, these examples are hard to give because, there's a billion situations. But if somebody is knowing, I've got to figure out a way to advocate for this kid without being offensive to the doctor in some way. Any advice for how to bridge that gap? Are there secret code words we don't know that we can say, and the doctor will be like, "Oh, okay, go ahead."
Is there a button we can pull out and push and be like, "No, this time I'm real serious."
Oh my gosh, she pushed the button.
Yes.
I know.
Oh man. Well, to be honest, I really wish that y'all would come and do.
I know.
Trauma. Yeah. Make us trauma informed because my situation, it wasn't that I got it in my training. Like the Lord changed my family circumstances pretty abruptly and it landed in my lap. And that's how I got to walk through some TBRI, and we did some Empowered to Connect parenting through a seminar, and that opened my eyes so much. I can't tell you how many times the Lord has used that. And when I'm seeing a kid and seeing a family and that's playing in, and I'm like, I'm hearing you, that I do not think I would have had if I had not gone that with my family experience. So I think there's a huge need, and even medical training for, we know all these ACEs and we know stats and numbers, but then real life scenario of really how traumatizing this is for a kid to go through this procedure or this attachment issue, or all these words and vocabulary and jargon that I learned as a parent, kind of walking through things with how our family changed several years ago, was not given to me in professional medical training. It was more like, I don't even know the word, standoffish. And this was hands-on. So I do think, JD, with that question, building trust over time, it may not happen in the first couple of visits, but hopefully a year in, when y'all come in and come out and come in and come out, and there has been some trust. I really do. I'm saying, I'm not concerned about this, but please tell me what you're concerned about. And I think using that language as a parent, saying, I know it may not be a red flag. We like that word. That's a good word for y'all. A red flag to you, but to me, this is a red flag. When my child's done this in the past, it has led to this, this, and this. Or we have seen this happen, or I have a friend who has a child that has the same whatever, and they have gone through this, and this was helpful. If you're trying to push for something and the physician's resistant to it, I think that could be powerful, personal experience testimony, and that's one thing I think with complex medical needs in a child, there's a community. Y'all kind of gravitate towards people who've been through what you're going through, and y'all learn from each other's experiences. And so that's helpful. And I may see one child with this, I may have, for instance, trisomy 21 or Down syndrome. I just have a couple of patients, but man, there's a huge network. And so those parents, they know like my child's more susceptible to this, this, and this. And I know some of that data as a physician, but not as much as the parent is on top of it. And so, gaining respect, knowing that they're in a community where that's talked about, they're walking through it, they're learning, they're more up to date of this new recommendation just came out, and saying, hey, I want to do this. I need these labs done, or this is now common in this child, for this type of syndrome.
You came in, I think one of the first things you said, and of course I honed in on it, and I can't restate it exactly, but you said, come in with confidence. So it's that idea of like, what does it look like to be a parent that comes into the room with confidence and kindness and respect? And those two things sometimes can get in the way of each other. So I think being a balance of like respecting your medical provider and then asking to be a part of the team with them in providing the best care for your child.
Yeah, we don't like Dr. Google. So I say that. And it's so hard because I know we do it too. We look up stuff all the time. There's so much information, but it's kind of like in my brain, like I have this algorithm that you give me this symptom and I'm going this way with it or this way with it. And I'm partnering other symptoms or whatever, but a parent may stay in a one track. And so that can lead, I'm like, no, but you went down this pathway, but we should have been going this way, but coming back up, like we both want the best for this child. Mm-hmm. We both care for this child. So let's back up and say, well, why are you so concerned about that? And some of it's time, it's crazy. You're given, and y'all are too, this amount of time to spend with this one before you got to move to the next patient and say, sometimes I do say, it's okay. Let's continue to talk about this at the next visit, or kind of saying, okay, we're going to talk about these few things today, and then we can follow up, or you can, use the patient portal and send more information. Those type of things can be helpful too.
So one of the things in our ATC parent class, like we encourage parents to find professionals to be part of their team. So like if you are needing to go outside of your home for some reason or another, whether it's medical, whether it's for counseling, whether it's for other therapeutic services or whatever, that's one of the things that we really encourage parents to do, is kind of find their team. If from your perspective, kind of being on the inside of the medical side, what can parents be looking for to find medical providers to be on their team? Like if you've got some choices, and we know that's not the situation everywhere, but if you do have some choices, what are some indicators that this might be a good spot for you?
Well, I do think sometimes personalities do play a big role. Some people they say this physician has horrible bedside manner, but they're brilliant in this. Like if you're the neurosurgeon, fine, you can do this. But in other ways, like it really does matter the personality and who your kid's comfortable with. I've done that with my own child. Like we've seen this person for so many years. Well, now all of a sudden we're past puberty and like, I would rather have a female physician now going forward. And so I think that's huge. You want you and your child to be comfortable and kind of listening to them as they get older, how you might have to switch gears. And then, listening, such a huge piece. Like we all have to be good listeners. And I think it's fine to ask. I do the same thing. Like if I have to take my child to see a specialist, I'm going to ask around like, hey, who do you feel like does listen to you, or who do you feel like you can actually get in with? And and then sometimes, people who are like for our area that kind of know other professions that can help coordinate the care. So you do want to find somebody who's, approachable, reachable in the community, that has a good reputation. And I know there are I've worked in different areas for nonprofit and things as well. And sometimes it's so hard because you're limited by your insurance. But I do think there's a huge, thankfully, a lot of people do take multiple types of insurance. And so you can coordinate. But sometimes you are, like you said, limited to your area, the insurance, who's actually taking patients at the time, all those things.
Maybe my little piggyback on that from a parent perspective is like maybe have realistic expectations of, and please don't hear me say at all to minimize the role of a good pediatrician in your medical team, but also like, let's have appropriate expectations of the part that they play in the whole support of your child.
Yeah.
And they don't have to necessarily be parenting experts.
Yes.
Or like, they don't have to understand attachment to like help you find the support you need to like even maybe treat ADHD or something. Like just understanding they don't have to have everything,
Yes.
you know?
Yes. And I mean, and sometimes I do think it's helpful to kind of have a pediatrician that's actually in a group, because I know in my group, I'm constantly going over. I mean, I asked the doctor I was working with the other day, hey, I've got this kid today and I'm seeing him for this. And what do you think about this when I was pushing on his belly? And, you know, we all need to be constant lifelong learners, you know, and sometimes a group setting too, if you don't have a lone pediatrician that they're kind of feeding off, we're encouraging each other. We're coming to each other. We're like, hey, did you see this that came out? Like we just saw that actually there's a new treatment for RSE that just came out. And we're like, okay, what are we going to do as a group for this? So sometimes there is that when you're in a group, it's a push to keep learning, keep coming up to date, because medicine is changing so fast. I mean, they talked about it. Like by the time something's in a textbook, it's out of date. Like we're constantly having things that you just need to read articles because you're going to have to, it's going to have changed by the time something can get published in a textbook. It's just that fast. But then again, some things like the experience is huge too. And like, I can say that for some people, doctors in my group, like they have seen more things than, you know, we send it all to a specialist. Now, I may not know about it, but I know who to send you to. Yeah. And they actually treated it and dealt with it because there weren't specialists. You know, it's kind of like, wow, how medicine has changed. And so that's what I tell residents all the time that are coming to work with me. I'm like, some of it's not knowing everything. It's knowing what's normal and what you don't know, and then how to go find help or know, okay, I need to refer you elsewhere to get more of it, because we're not going to be able to keep up with everything. Yeah. Like you just can't. Nobody can keep up with everything in every field. And so maybe
and
that's
it's interesting. Well, I think as a parent, I'm like, hearing that you are okay not knowing everything brings me to rest.
Yes.
Like I wouldn't want to be seeing a doctor that is pretending to know it all, actually. That doesn't bring felt safety to me.
Yes. Well, I can't tell you. There's been numerous times that I can tell. I've told a parent, it's like, I do not know what's going on, but I do know the God who do knows. And can we stop and pray for a moment? Yeah. And just ask God to, hey, what do we need to do now? What's the next steps? What needs to be ordered? What allows me to be done? Because, you know, arrogance and pride, that's going to be our downfall, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not going to lead us anywhere. So, yeah. From all of our perspectives. So,
yes. And I, as a parent, don't know it all either. So maybe that's mutual humility in the care of a child.
That's
Well, that's
like a really powerful thing. What's that, JD?
I said that's where we're all different. That's where we are different. I do walk in knowing what needs to, I've got Google, and I walk in with the idea. I know what needs to be done. Just kidding. Yeah. Okay. So as we kind of start to wrap up here, quick hitter questions. We've done this in an informal way before, but we're going to start just kind of asking these questions at the end to all of our guests. So you're the first one, Lauren. So buckle up. All right. Number one, what are you watching, reading, or listening to right now?
Do not watch anything.
I'm not going to feel bad about that.
Practice.
I watch my children. No, seriously, listening. Well, it's really sad, but we are on the go so much with all these kids. So I really do try. When I have a kid by themselves in the car, like I was really encouraged by people who are parenting older than me. And I take that time to kind of listen to that one kid in the car for the moment. And then the only thing I'm else really listening to is I'm going my own chronological reading plan through the Bible, because I can't do it in a year. So I made my own 2.5-year plan with 4 other ladies.
That's awesome.
And that's been really good, because the Psalms have been so sweet, because it pairs it with where David is and realizing that. Oh, cool. So, and how he's, being really chased for his life by Saul. And I don't know, that's really what I'm listening to right now. Right. And then the Bible recap with Tara Lee Cobble that she's
yeah.
And so really thinking about that and how patient God is. Like David keeps going back, are you sure you want me to attack the Philistines? And then he goes back and talks to his comrades and like, no, we're not going. He's like, let me go talk to God again. And then comes back and he's like, no, yeah, go. Y'all attack the Philistines. I'm going to give them victory. And I'm like, Thanks, God. I'm glad you're so patient. Help me be patient when my kids come back to me again. You sure, Mom, you want me to do this?
When I have to go listen to them in the car again, I'm just kidding.
So sometimes I'm listening to silence too, because if I get a moment with no kid,
Yeah.
I love that. I'm just going to sit there.
All right. Second question. You're inviting somebody over for a meal, dead or alive. And that could be in your life or famous for everybody. Who are you bringing over and what are you cooking?
I'm the worst person to have if you're on a trivia team because I know a lot of people.
I know a lot of people. I know nobody that's currently alive.
No famous alive people like movie stars, songs. No, like my husband's like, what? You don't know who that is. I'm like, no. So seriously, I would think, this is because I was listening to an audiobook with my child with dyslexia, Corey Ten Boom.
Okay. I
listened to that recently and I was like, man, I wish I knew this woman. She's amazing.
That's awesome.
So,
and what meal would it be? Breakfast, lunch, or dinner? I'll let you off the hook with that question instead.
You know what? I would do breakfast for dinner because my husband never wants to do that because he doesn't think it's real meat. And he's like, got to have meat at night. And that is breakfast meat is not real meat. I'm like, what?
We just like turkey bacon don't count at dinner. It does not count at dinner.
When I was growing up. So that's nostalgic for me. Like we had breakfast for dinner.
Corey Ten Boom.
Breakfast for dinner with Corey Ten Boom.
Yep. All right. And then what, and you kind of alluded to this a little bit, but what's giving you life right now?
Oh, sleep.
Yeah.
Amen, sis.
When I can take a nap. No, you know what? There is something that for the last 6 years, I think I have a dear friend that we wouldn't call it run. We jog Monday, Wednesday, Friday mornings. And if I did not have that, I would be a crazy woman.
Yeah.
So I have 30, 40 minutes that we jog around our midtown home. And that is a huge time just to talk adult talk and pray and scream and fuss about whatever in life and still get some exercise and mental, we're complex beings with all this mental, spiritual, emotional, physical.
Yeah.
And man, that's these kiddos and we too, we need it.
Awesome.
I love that.
That's it. You're off the hook.
It's just been a pleasure, like getting to see you and just grateful for our lives we've been together all those years ago and the way you've just continually faithfully cared for the children of our community. So I admire you so much. So thanks for bringing your sweet, thoughtful, humble, reflective self to the podcast today.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah, just great stuff with Dr. Chipman. Thank you. A huge thank you to her for coming. I'll say the Wilsons are huge fans of the Chipmans, all of them. We've been friends with them for a very long time and know that the Ottingers are as well and have a special place in their heart for her and the way they cared for them when in the hospital. So just a huge thank you for her for jumping in. And hopefully that was a very helpful episode for you, just as a parent, learning how to navigate that medical world and learning how to advocate for our kids there. So without any further ado, I do want to remind you one more time to go check out our event that is coming. It's called Investing in Hope. You can find information about it on empoweredtoconnect.org/Investing in Hope. You can click the link in our show notes if you need more. Without being able to say more, I will just say we are so excited, and you'll see why once you click the link if you know what we're talking about. So too cryptic, I know, but you got to go to the website to find out. So all that said, that's it for us today. For Kyle Wright, who edits and engineers all of our audio, for Tad Jewett, the creator of the music behind the Empowered to Connect podcast, and everybody here at ETC, I'm JD Wilson, and we'll see you next week on the Empowered to Connect podcast.